Hello, hello. What's going on? I'm Victor Adatiba with Agile Tech Training Academy, and we're back with another episode of our Agile Leadership Series. And today we've got a special guest, Mr. Ryan Green is joining us today. How you doing today, Ryan?
I'm doing great today. I appreciate you having me on.
No problem, no problem. Appreciate you being here. Ryan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the guests? Tell them your kind of job title and what it is you do for a living.
Sure. As you mentioned, my name is Ryan Green. Um, I currently work as an analyst at Comcast and also a analytics lead at Flexi. Um, and I've been involved with data in some capacity for about 5 years now. And that ranges from like data analytics or data analysis to data engineering to a little bit of data science as needed. And essentially, what these roles do is just help businesses make more informed decisions using the information that they gather from either their products that they sell. So at Comcast, we have, like your internet service, your cell phone service, and we have different products that people buy to support their personal needs or business needs. So
Hmm.
on the data analytics side, we'll collect that information, try to understand who our users are, how they use our products, and how we want to market to them or how we need to troubleshoot issues. Um, with Flexi,
Hmm.
this is a talent acquisition platform where we bridge um, gig workers or flex workers with companies that need to fill shifts
Hmm.
on an ongoing and rolling basis. So right now, we're really at really startup level and really trying to understand who our users are, who our companies are, and really trying to make a name for ourselves. So with that, I'm able to understand from our leadership what are the tools we need to have in place to be successful and help grow our business? And then how do we make the most use out of those tools to continue to move the business forward? So, working on the data side, coming from business, I used to work in college athletics, but now having a technical skill to use information to talk to stakeholders and business leaders to
Gotcha.
make better decisions helps me, you know, um, be influential in ways that really add value. So that's really what I do, what kind of like data work is, and excited to really spread the message about how to really solve problems using data and not just off intuition, which
Hmm.
is um, an area that has potential for a lot of growth in the near future. So excited to
Sure.
talk more about it.
Let me ask you this, Ryan. So you say you've been doing this for about 5 years. Is that correct?
Yes, I started a boot camp in 2020, COVID
Okay.
year.
And what was your background prior to getting into the boot camp and getting into data? What did you do for a living, or what did you go to school for before that? Prior to that?
Yeah, so I went to Georgia State University in undergrad and studied finance,
Hmm.
and then pursued a master's degree in sport administration.
Hmm.
And the year I graduated from undergrad, I actually was fortunate enough to work in business athletics. So at Georgia State, there's college athletics that supports basketball, football, all the college athletic sports. And
Hmm.
on the administrative side, there's business office, operational work to pay invoices, create budget reports, and that gave me insight into how business decisions can be made.
Hmm.
But a lot of what I was doing was really manual. So I did 3 years at Georgia State University. And then after 3 years, I'm sorry, I did 2 years at Georgia State University. And then after 2 years, I kind of decided I wanted to test my skills elsewhere and kind of push myself a little bit.
Hmm.
So I was afforded the opportunity to um, work at Northwestern University and move up to Chicago by way of a great mentor of mine, Kevin White.
Hmm.
He brought me on board and allowed me to get some more experience working in college athletics at kind of like a higher level,
Hmm.
if you will. So did that for 3 years, worked in business office at Northwestern, doing some of the same business office work. I got introduced into some camps and clinics administration that our coaches were having year round.
Mhm.
And just throughout that process, working with camps and clinics, I noticed that there was a huge operational challenge with coaches submitting required paperwork to put on their camps and clinics due to
Mhm.
just um, different legislation and rules that either campus had in place or the NCAA had in place. So to make my job easier, I sought to make a lot of the manual paperwork that was being submitted into um, a more automated process via uh, I forget the tool name, but there are so many different forms to use. So
Mhm.
I really did my own development as far as transitioning the manual paperwork forms into like electronic forms that can be submitted, and then using those electronic submissions to essentially like start analyzing the types of camps that our coaches were putting on, the amount of money that they were charging, the kids that were signing up for these camps, the age ranges of these camps.
Mhm.
Um, and then campus leadership, or at least athletics leadership, started to question if there was an opportunity for us to gain more revenue from these camps and clinics that
Mhm.
coaches were putting on.
Mhm. So
Um,
these are like
so
basketball
that
camps, football camps that are open to maybe people who don't go to the school?
correct, yeah.
Okay.
So during the summer is huge camp season for youth sports.
Mhm.
So there would be like soccer camps for minors just to come on campus,
Mhm.
explore the campus, and then interact with the coaches, some student athletes. So it brings recognition to the university. It
Sure.
gives kids an opportunity to meet student athletes, um, and then it allows for uh, like athletics and campus to gain revenue from hosting these activities.
Mhm.
Um, so there was an opportunity to basically like get more revenue from these camps and clinics, but leadership didn't understand like where we were today as far as that revenue goes and where we wanted to get to and
Mhm.
where that opportunity was. Um, so really in 2000 and I would say 18 to 19 was like my
Mhm.
first introduction into creating like a plan or a proposal for what we should do based on historical records. Um,
Gotcha.
and since I did the heavy lifting on the front side of transitioning those forms from manual paperwork to electronic submissions, um, creating that proposal was a lot easier than it could have been
Mhm.
had we been using those manual forms. And,
Gotcha.
and really, that challenged me in a way that I hadn't been challenged maybe since undergrad when it
Mhm.
comes to like intellectual planning and using some technical skill. And that really opened my eyes into like what could be a good career for myself and for my family, which is kind of where I find myself today. So that was
Gotcha.
kind of like a start. And then COVID happened. I was able to take a step back and say, what do I really want to do? Is it work with sports and work with coaches?
Mhm.
Um, or do I want to push myself and stretch myself mentally
Mhm.
and
Let me
learn a
ask you
skill? And
let me ask you this
that's where
question.
I started. Mhm.
Were you in athletics in college or prior to then? Did you play any sports, or was it just kind of a natural progression for you once you graduated?
Yeah, so I played basketball at Georgia State University.
Okay. Okay.
I played basketball my whole life, really, and that was kind of like all I knew. Uh,
Gotcha.
I played football prior to high school, but I got to
Mhm.
high school and seniors were maybe like 60 pounds heavier than me and linebackers, and I wasn't going to be a wide receiver running across the middle. So
Yeah.
I decided to stick to the hardwood. And yeah, that basketball and sports was my whole life up until college and
Gotcha.
through college. And
Mhm.
I really didn't know much about careers outside of sports,
Yeah.
which is
So
how I ended up working in athletics when I graduated.
gotcha. So that was a natural progression for you. You had no like thoughts or ideas or interests of going into actual data or technology. You just really wanted to be around sports and athletics, which is something that it sounds like you loved and you um, participated in for your entire life.
Yeah, correct. That was kind of just like the natural progression for me. And yeah, I didn't know anything about data or technology really. I just knew that like there were sports, people played them. I knew Kobe was great. I knew LeBron was the next thing up.
Yeah.
I knew Shaq was a beast. I love watching football, and
Yeah.
it wasn't until like I graduated college and started connecting with people and started learning more about business that
Mm-hmm.
uh, I could start finding out what it is that I want to do outside of sports, knowing that
Mm-hmm.
sports would always be there, and I could always like be a fan and get back in it whenever I needed to.
Nice, nice. So tell me about like one of the projects that you worked on um, for the school, right? So give me an example of um, maybe how much a camp cost, how many students were attending, how much revenue was generated, and then like through the reporting and the analytics that you did, like what opportunities you found and like how that could be a benefit to the company or to the school and how much more money they could make by making some of the tweaks or adjustments that you found.
Yeah, sure. So going back to this process of transitioning their camps and clinics forms from manual to then digital paperwork and then creating basically what is a Power BI dashboard that has different parameters to change based on how much you want to charge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we found out that through camps and clinics, the university was bringing in roughly, let's say, about $100,000 a year,
Okay.
and these camps could charge a parent of a minor somewhere between anywhere between like I would say like $20 for 1 day camps to up to maybe like 500, if not a little bit more for like a week long camp,
Okay.
for like a football camp, if
Mm-hmm.
it ranged like 5 days. So the range is really wide for how much they could charge. And then depending on the capacity in the sport, if it was like tennis, you may have, 20 to 50 kids for a day. But then football camps, when recruiting season, they could have up to like 400, 500 students a day.
Mm-hmm.
So um, we were only charging so that's what the coaches were charging their fees, but athletics was only charging the coaches who were putting on these camps $3 per person.
Oh wow.
So if there was a kid that was on campus and they had registered for a camp, then we were charging the coach $3 per person for that kid for that day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you could just by hearing that math hear that there's a wide range in what the coaches were charging their attendees and what the university was charging the coaches.
Yeah.
But it
So
was like
just a quick,
incenting
quick
them to use the facility. Go ahead.
so just to do a little bit of quick math. So like on the maybe a camp where maybe basketball camp where the school is or the coach is charging $20 for the student, the school is only making $3 out of that 20, and the coach is able to keep the other 17 for themselves.
Correct.
And then for a
Correct.
football camp that the coach is charging $500 for a 5-day week camp, the school is making roughly $15 off of that kid for the week, and the coach is able to pocket or keep the other $485 for that student or that
Correct.
minor.
And I correct. And I don't really recall the exact amount that they were charging for the camps, but it's
Hmm.
that kind of model set up,
Sure.
and that like if the rate was that they were charging, then that's the math that
Gotcha.
you know that you're coming up with is correct. So
Okay.
that like is the range and the gap that the opportunity that was identified. Um,
Let me ask this question, this
so
follow up. I'm sorry.
mhm,
So you said the
you're good.
schools on average were making about $100,000 a year from the camps. Is that $100,000 from the $3 per student that they were making, or is that $100,000 total, including what the coaches were making?
No, that was just for what the school was making by
Okay.
charging the coaches at $3. We also had like liability fees, which is we would offer like liability insurance to coaches to cover themselves,
Hmm.
just like general liability insurance and other insurance that was needed just to protect the university and protect the coaches.
Hmm.
So that ranged from that was really cheap, like $1 or something to like $2. Um, and we basically bought like a group liability plan and asked the coaches to buy into it if they didn't have their own. So
Gotcha.
there was like a one added fee for that, but it was
Mm-hmm.
really minor. But
Gotcha.
yeah, $100,000 is what we were making from the coaches, and the coaches would pocket that difference for what they didn't pay us. But that allowed the coaches to pay for their staffing, any equipment that they needed. Um, it helped support a lot of the coaches that maybe may not have had the salary throughout the year to
Sure.
support their living. So there are those two sides to it. The coaches
Makes
wanted to make
sense.
their staff happy, keep them there. They wanted to retain their talent. But also, they're running a business aside from coaching their team. So
Right.
that's like kind of another way to look at it as well.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. So as you close out this project and you start looking at other opportunities outside of the school, how did you go into the data boot camp that you ultimately ended up enrolling in?
Yeah. So COVID hit in March 2020. I had never worked from home uh, up until then. And when we did, I sat for like April and May. And I really started to question if I really wanted to work in athletics because we weren't attending events. We were doing everything like electronically. I had to scan like invoices like with my phone and upload them.
Hmm.
And it just became like really mundane for me. So, like I said, I kind of want to challenge myself, and I consulted with some mentors, and just sought opportunities to grow myself.
Hmm.
And there was a data science boot camp that was offered through Trilogy Services. I forget what the name is now, but they hosted it at Northwestern University. It
Hmm.
was a 26-week boot camp, started in July 2024, so maybe like 5 years to the day. Um, and it ran up until like mid-November.
Hmm.
And I had to think long and hard about it because it wasn't a cheap a cheap investment. And if I was going to do it, then luckily I had working at Northwest University, I was able to get like a 90% discount for the program.
90%, you say?
Um, you're
Oh
correct,
wow.
yeah.
So even with the 90%
So
off, it was still pretty expensive?
yeah, so the program itself was about 13 grand. And
Oh wow.
you could do your research on these programs today. Like people charge an arm and a leg for them. But luckily, through being an employee, I only needed to pay like 13. But it was
100.
definitely less than 15. So yeah, 1,500, correct.
Hmm.
And that made it worth the time. And I knew if I took it, I was going to take it serious. So
Hmm.
I really took that time from July to November, and took late nights, long days. And they tell you it's a 20 hour a week commitment, and that's
Hmm.
not like a joke if you really want to put the time in and grow. So that's what I did. I kind of locked in, and for that time period, just focused on learning VBA, Python, JavaScript, SQL. All of these are just like languages of
Hmm.
coding, and there's
Hmm.
really just like an introduction. And I found myself liking what I was doing, and just like enjoying like having something to focus on and work towards. Um, and around October, I actually started to just test the waters and see where I could go. And an opportunity opened itself at Northwest University outside of athletics,
Hmm.
um, working for like student enterprise systems. So this is the department that managed the student related data at Northwest University, for like the registrar's office, admissions, kind of the brainchild of how people are able to, apply to certain classes or withdraw from classes. So I was able to start understanding how data can be used in an educational setting
Hmm.
outside of athletics. Um, so I graduated a boot camp in November. I ended up, I think, getting the job with athletics or with student enterprise systems sometime like in October.
Hmm.
So there was maybe like 1 or 2 months of overlap, but
Hmm.
I at that point understood that my achievement had been met, and I was able to get outside of athletics, which was my goal.
Nice. And so once you changed careers, from athletics to this new department, did you see a significant increase in your annual salary?
Yes. So in general, like you work in athletics with a passion, and people who work in the field tell you that that's how they get to, especially at a college athletics level, you can underpay people because, or it's justified that you can underpay people because of the passion and you want to work there to be around the
Hmm.
sport.
Right.
So just by doing that, I increased my salary by I think like 35,000 at the
Oh
time.
wow.
I was
Oh
making
wow.
like I think I was making like 50. I ended up getting like 80, 85.
Hmm.
So that was for me at the time, like I would say like life changing, but it just showed me the power of like putting out a goal, setting yourself up for success, working towards something, and letting the results kind of just like speak for themselves in a way. And you know, that really just like taught me everything I needed to know about where I needed to be and what I was doing, and I was on the right path.
Sure. So, what was your trajectory after kind of making that transition within the school? Where did your job progression go to from there? How much longer did you stay with the school? How did you
Yeah.
find a new opportunity?
Yeah. So I got to that student enterprise systems, and we were working remotely for the next maybe like 10 months.
Hmm.
And around August or September, they started saying that we would have to come back into the office. And if you worked remotely during that time and people
Yeah.
started talking about coming back to the office, it was like, nah, I'm not doing that. So I actually kept in contact, luckily, just I think I do a good job of just trying to connect with people, whether I think I'm going to need them or not, or
Hmm.
just like I just like to connect with people and pick brains and
Sure.
grow relationships. And I did that with the alumni in our boot camp. Um, so there was an active Slack channel with the alumni that we had, and I would just stay active in it, connecting with former classmates from the boot camp. And there was a post in there from a former alumni for the boot camp who I was in there with, and she said that hey, there's an opportunity with McDonald's. They're looking for somebody um, to start pretty soon, and with the news of me having to return to office soon, and really want to challenge myself because I like where I was at working wise, but the work itself again started to get a little mundane, and I wanted to push myself. I realized I wasn't challenging myself,
Hmm.
so I saw this as another opportunity to say, if this is something that I want to search for, let's do some research, find out how much, they're getting paid. It was like a senior technical data analyst position.
Hmm.
Um, so I just said, hey, Corey, Tasic, who's still there, I'm interested. What do I need to do?
Hmm.
And she quickly got me in contact with um, the hiring manager, and it was a contracting job at first, like a contract to hire type position.
Hmm.
Um, but you know, I had a conversation with the engagement manager. We talked about experiences, goals, and that allowed me to get out of higher education and into what's considered like corporate America, um, in a field that I started growing interest in, that I wanted to learn more about and understand how it was done at like a Fortune 50 company.
Hmm.
Um, so that was where my next opportunity landed. I started this is like the way that I knew that things were working. I think that the day before I got married, um, I got a call from the recruiting manager, and we had had a good relationship. This is my first time going through like a recruiting phase of just like
Hmm.
having to go through a process and explain my skills and
Sure.
kind of challenge myself. So August 19th, 2021, I got a call while I was taking my wife to her appointment. And, I just sat in the car and I got a call and she said they want to offer you a position for like $120,000. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna call you. I gotta, not that I think about it, but like my brain just started like, what?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
It didn't
And
compute. Error.
it didn't
Syntax
compute.
error.
Yeah, syntax error. Yeah, and I said, all right, let me have a conversation, talk, what I need to do. And I just remember like that weekend, like my mind just like racing. We was also pregnant at the
Mm-hmm.
time with my, firstborn, with my only son now. And, at that point in time, like the stars were just aligning in a way that I had not seen for the previous couple of years.
Right.
So it kind of let me know that I was where I needed to be. And I ended up obviously accepting a position, but that got me into corporate America and really started to like let me understand what the possibilities were within this field.
Yeah. So you went from around 50K to 85K to 120K. Is that about right?
Correct. Yeah.
So from your first position, that's more than double what you were making when you were just strictly kind of focused on working in athletics, right? And
Correct. Yeah.
so, how long did you ultimately end up staying at McDonald's?
About a year and a half.
Okay,
Um, I got thrown in the fire.
it's the
Must
best way to
admit,
learn.
like, yeah, it was, I just talked about all the kind of highlights of going through learning what I wanted to learn, getting into a field. The green had always, I mean, the grass had always been greener on the other side. So I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
like this is it. And I got to McDonald's, and the first couple of months were good, like onboarding. But I
Hmm.
quickly realized like the challenges that the company faced.
Hmm.
And at the time, I didn't understand. And now I look back on it now, like I wasn't as developed and polished as I needed to be
Hmm.
and as mature as I needed to be successful like, in that role. So I went through a lot of growing pains really early.
Hmm.
Um, and then I actually had a change of leadership within. So I started in, I would say like October 2021,
Hmm.
September, October. And then it was a contract to hire. So around 6 months, they brought me on full time. I started in like March 2022 full time.
Hmm.
And my manager at the time left like 3 weeks after I started,
Oh wow.
and it was just a department of me and her, like supporting the software engineering team for data
Oh wow.
analytics.
Hmm.
And that was a part where I got thrown in the fire. I had to get up on my feet quick, and
Hmm.
there was a lot of challenges, which is like expectations versus reality. Um, that I look back on today, and I probably didn't handle it as best I needed to, but it was because I was new, kind of trying to figure things out, thinking that I knew more than I actually did, and didn't do my due diligence, and
Yeah.
connecting with who I needed to, and really
Yeah. I mean, it's
like
always it's always
just making the most opportunity. So that's kind of
yeah.
what it was.
Yeah. It's always interesting to look back at your career and see uh, I guess previous opportunities, not necessarily that you wasted, but that you were giving that you didn't see the value in then.
Mhm.
But you later see the value, you see how it helped you develop, and see how maybe if you were then the person you are today, how you could have maybe risen to the challenge in a better way. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, correct, 100%. And you know, I think there were challenges technology wise that we didn't have or understand.
Hmm.
And, I would say that I wasn't put up for in a position to be successful, but I
Hmm.
don't think that there was their job necessarily. It was my job to come in and understand what does success look like and
Hmm.
then build that up. So, I was able to lead a team of engineers to work with project managers to deliver, reports for how we were improving from software development.
Hmm.
I help support like our mobile app and our point of sale systems for technology within the stores.
Hmm.
So part of my role was to understand, what were the issues that our technology teams were facing as far as development goes, spread across different countries. How do we consolidate that into one place? How do we get everybody on the same page? And how do we reduce the errors within our mobile app? Um, and what all I was doing at the time was just reporting and saying, these are the errors that we have. Like, I don't know how y'all fix them, but this is what y'all need to go look at.
Yeah.
And what they wanted to know is, what do we need to go fix
Got you.
specifically? And I
So
didn't have the technical capability at the time to bridge the stakeholder requests versus what I was doing. And it
Hmm.
just calls for a lot of butting heads of priorities pretty often. So
Gotcha. So would you say that that's the difference between just kind of um, pulling the data and analyzing the data, or what is there like a difference in that title or that role or that function? What, how do you call those out specifically?
yeah, I think where I am today, the biggest thing with either pulling or analyzing data is really understanding and asking the right questions to a stakeholder.
Hmm.
Just stakeholders, by stakeholders for anybody who doesn't know what that is, just a person who has requests for some information, and they have stake in the request.
Hmm.
The request has you know the result impacts their job in some type of way,
Sure.
how they see value. Um, so an important part of our job as data professionals is to understand in layman's terms what they're asking, right? Like you may want a report, you have no idea how it's built, you don't care about the technical aspects, but you want to see some results. As
Hmm.
a data professional, we have to get to the root of why you're asking that question and not just hear what you're saying. Like
Hmm.
a lot of stakeholders just want results, but most times there's a root of understanding that result. And if, as a data professional, if you can't ask the question that gets to the core of the problem,
Hmm.
then you're just going to be spinning wheels and creating reports that don't fix a problem. They
Gotcha.
just provide answers to questions that don't add real business value.
Gotcha.
And that's not what I did not do a good job of that early in my career in corporate America. And
Hmm.
that's where a lot of the growing pain was because I was constantly getting requests, providing the answers to those results, and I wasn't able to speak to how this added value or how this, made the business better. And when I couldn't answer those questions, the requests and the questions kept coming
Hmm.
because the problems weren't getting fixed.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I ended up having like more change of leadership later that year from the top down. There was like a new CIO that came in July 2022,
Hmm.
and with if anybody who follows technology, once you have a new CIO come in, like or CTO, it's
Hmm.
they're cleaning house.
Yeah. Bringing
They're
in their own
getting
people,
to
like, yeah.
they bring it's a so there was a huge basically like reorganization that happened later that year and then early in 2023. Um, and as part of it, they saw that a lot of the team members that I was working with, that I was working on, just like really wasn't valuable to the organization. Is the
Hmm.
easiest way I can put it.
Hmm.
And at that point, I was really burnt out anyway, man. Like from the requests that were coming in, the type of pressure that I was feeling.
Hmm.
We had just had a baby in December 2021, so I was mentally going through a lot. And by the time it was, that organizational change came, I felt like I needed a breath of fresh air to
Hmm.
kind of release myself from what I thought was pushing myself forward, but I was really just like adding stress to myself at the end of the day. And a lot of my relationships started to struggle because of it. And I didn't like
Hmm.
what I was feeling. So I had to get back to like what I thought was important and what my family was important, what I thought was important for my family. And that sparked like a whole new energy about myself and my career and how I
Sure.
felt about what I wanted to do. So that was
Gotcha.
that.
So you left McDonald's and you ended up at what company?
So left McDonald's and I actually sat for like 6 months.
Hmm.
Um, you know, luckily the leaving McDonald's, they didn't just leave me to dry. They put,
Hmm.
everybody who left had a fair compensation package and
Hmm.
it allowed, me and my wife and my family to get back home to Georgia. And, I took some months just to like take a deep breath, get
Hmm.
settled, move back. And I took some time and I didn't pressure it. I kind of started like soft applying in the summer last year, like June, not really wanting to get anywhere, but just seeing like what the market looked like.
Hmm.
And around this time, I'm speaking about my experience, but thinking holistically about the market. you know, the time in which McDonald's did their reorganization was really aligned with how a lot of companies were starting to lay off a lot of tech folks due to
Mhm.
overhiring.
Mhm.
So, you know, summer of 2023, a lot of last year's, a lot of companies were still doing those layoffs. So it's kind of like tough to
Mhm.
try to figure out if I'm going to get in a place, like where are they as far as their big plan and how they want to operate. And I was walking in Publix in like June or July of 2023, and I got a call from another, recruiting manager, saying, "Hey, we have a client at Home Depot that they're looking for a data analyst." And we talked a little about the role. I had to make sure that it was the right fit. I said I want to work on a good team. I wanted
Mhm.
to like right the wrongs from my past role,
True.
and got on to that role with Home Depot. And within like a month, my manager was let go as part of their reorganization at Home Depot.
Yeah.
So I sat there for a couple of months. I was able to do a little bit of work with them. But deep down inside, I figured that this was going to be a repeat of what I had just experienced.
Mhm.
So again, I had to, instead of chase like a company or role, I had to chase like the feeling of being a part of something that was going to help me improve like professionally,
Right.
individually, and I was going to have time to support my family. So soon thereafter, I started applying again, and that's how I ended up with Comcast at the end of
Okay. Nice. And so, in this journey that you've taken over the last 5 years of personal discovery, professional development, um, what do you think has been like the most important lesson that you've learned that has kind of set you up for success?
the day. One important lesson: um, anything worth having doesn't come easy.
Mm.
Um, and you know, during the time last summer, I'm gonna give one more shout out to my cousin, Tamika Morrison. I During the time of like transition, like I just sat back and I said, how are we gonna make a difference, like in a way that is gonna spread knowledge and help people the way that I
Mhm.
see it, right? Like I've
Mhm.
been trying to support other people's dreams and goals and work for companies, but actually my uncle had he was always like in my ear. Both I have two uncles, and they was like, man, like, look up this certification, this. And I was like, yeah, I get to it, I get to it. And then I really made a decision like, okay, like I know there are people who I know are doing great things with themselves and with their families. So let's start something. Let's figure out what we can do and just work
Mhm.
for it. So called Tamika and just said, hey, like I know, you're doing this. You work in the field and you're pretty successful. Let's work towards something. Let's grind and let's just see what happens. And with no real like, I would say we had a plan, but there was a vision. And over time, we started to put that into place. And that's that kind of goes back to the lesson is that through work, through experience, through grinding, the results and the fruits of your labor are gonna show. Like if you
Mhm.
put in the work, like it's gonna happen. Like if you're looking for quick results the next day for something that you did today and you're gonna shut down because you don't see those results on that day, then you're not gonna get anywhere. Like you're just gonna try something, fail, stop, be discouraged, sit down.
Mhm.
But if you really want to put in the time and the effort to map out a plan and see what can happen from putting in true effort and connecting and building and doing all the things, the little small things is what really matters. Like I love Kobe Bryant, like because he's a mind freak when it comes to like the details. And it's
Focus and
really the small things and the details that really make the great ones be great in what they
mhm.
do. And
Mhm.
that's, you can apply that to any field, any job, any career, like any sport. Like the great ones don't cut corners. They
Right.
seek out what they have to do, don't make excuses, and they get it
We lost him. There you go.
I'm back.
You're saying the great ones don't make excuses.
Correct. Yeah, great ones don't make excuses. They just get the work done, and they're not going to talk too much about it, but they work, work, work. And when you pick your head up at the end of the day, you look like now you're
Like,
considered like great. So that's kind of like the lesson that all of this experience has taught me and continue to teach me about just like life in general.
I love it. I love it. Good stuff, man. Um, well, I think that brings us to the end of the episode. I will say that Ryan and his cousin Tamika are starting a new data program in partnership with Mansa Tech Training Academy. So, if a career in data is something that is of interest to you, if you'd like to attend one of our upcoming webinars to learn a little bit more about the program and about how you can kind of ascend your career, and if having more balance for your life and for your family is something that's interesting to you, if increasing um, your salary is something that is interesting to you, if being able to work from home is something that's interesting to you, then I encourage you to send a text message. You can text data, DATA, to 469-382-5890, and you will get registered and enrolled to get an update of when we're having our next webinar to teach you a little bit more about our data program and let you know how you can get enrolled. With that, Ryan, you have any closing words?
Uh, just thank you for providing this platform and allowing stories to be shared. Um, and really looking forward to just continuing to work together and help out anyone who is interested in a career in data. It's really a self-paced learning field where you learn as much as you want to, you apply as much as you want to, work in as many side projects as you want to, and it really like improves. I would say it's improved like my way of life because I've applied skills and methodology and just like technology in different ways that have improved me in little different ways in my life. And yeah, looking forward to anybody who wants to, get involved. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ryan. And with that, y'all have a wonderful day. We'll see you in the next episode. Peace.